Imagine stepping into a lavish Roman banquet hall. The air is thick with incense, mingling with the pungent smell of roasted meats and spilled wine. Golden lamps flicker against marble walls, casting shadows over senators, generals, and courtesans, reclined on silk couches. To an outsider, this scene might look like the height of luxury, an empire at the peak of its glory, but linger a little longer, and you would begin to see something far darker. Behind the laughter and the music lurked rituals of humiliation, indulgence, and cruelty that even Rome's enemies could scarcely have imagined. What if Rome's greatness was not just built on conquest and engineering marvels, but also on the exploitation of the vulnerable behind closed doors? What if beneath the statues, the aqueducts, and the Colosseum's grandeur there existed practices so disturbing that later chroniclers tried to bury them in silence? Most of what we learn today about Roman sexuality has been filtered, softened, or reduced to curiosity. Modern portrayals focus on romance, gladiatorial excess, or harmless decadence. But the truth, preserved in fragments by writers like Suetonius, Juvenal, and Tacitus, paints a much more unsettling picture. These men, often driven by bias or moral outrage, recorded glimpses of a world where power dictated desire and cruelty became a form of entertainment. Some details were censored, others deliberately erased. Moral reformers of later centuries wanted Rome remembered for its law, its order, its discipline, not its depravity. Yet the fragments that survive tell a chilling story, that behind the masks of marble and empire lay practices that challenge every assumption we hold about civilization. Stay with us as we uncover the most horrific sexual practices of the Roman Empire, secrets history tried to hide. The Roman Empire was a world of staggering wealth and crushing poverty, of towering marble arches and blood-soaked arenas. Senators draped in purple silks feasted beneath gilded ceilings, while slaves fetched their wine and cleared their plates. In the villas of the elite, mosaics gleamed with scenes of gods and lovers, while just outside, the cries of chained men echoed from the gladiator barracks. Rome was an empire obsessed with power, and nowhere was that power more intimately displayed than in its approach to sexuality. Unlike modern societies, Roman sexuality was not framed in terms of morality or equality. It was about domination. To penetrate was to rule. To be penetrated was to submit. This logic extended far beyond the bedroom. Conquered peoples, enslaved men and women, even political rivals, could be stripped not only of property or dignity, but of their very bodily autonomy. Sexuality was a weapon, a declaration of status that reinforced Rome's rigid hierarchy. Ancient historians such as Suetonius in the 12 Caesars and Tacitus in his Annals recorded scandal after scandal, emperors indulging in orgies, forcing courtiers into humiliating acts, blurring the line between public spectacle and private vice. Yet their accounts were far from neutral. Suetonius thrived on salacious gossip, painting lurid portraits of the Caesars to entertain as much as to inform. Tacitus, steeped in moral outrage, condemned Rome's decline by emphasizing excess and depravity. Their biases must be weighed carefully, but together they reveal a culture where sexual dominance was synonymous with political dominance. From the banquets to the amphitheaters, Rome displayed its hunger for control. And behind the polished image of civilization lay an unspoken truth. Power in Rome was not just worn as a crown, it was enacted upon the body. To understand Rome's most horrific sexual practices, we must first examine the roots of its culture. At the heart of Roman identity was a rigid concept of masculinity. A Roman man was expected to dominate, militarily, politically, and sexually. To yield, to show softness, or to be subjected, was to be considered weak, effeminate, even dishonorable. This mindset did not remain confined to the battlefield. It spilled into daily life, shaping how power was expressed through the body. Conquered peoples bore the brunt of this ideology. Every Roman victory brought not only land and treasure, but human spoils. Slaves who could be forced into servitude, including sexual exploitation. Their lack of status made them vulnerable, stripped of any right to refuse. For many elites, owning sexual access to slaves was a public demonstration of superiority, a way of declaring, "I control not only your body, but your dignity." Even religion was not immune to this darkness. During festivals like Saturnalia, when social rules were inverted and chaos reigned, boundaries between celebration and violation often blurred. Saturnalia offered license to mock authority, but it also became an excuse for indulgence and transgression. What began as ritual freedom could easily slide into cruelty. Writers such as Juvenal, in his biting satires, and Petronius, in the decadent Satyricon, offer glimpses into this world. Juvenal condemned Rome's moral decay with sharp exaggeration, while Petronius painted grotesque scenes of feasts where lust and cruelty merged into performance. Their words are not neutral accounts. They are satire, critique, even parody. Yet hidden beneath their wit lies a grim truth. In Rome, sexuality was never private. It was spectacle, a weapon, and a declaration of power that set the stage for horrors yet to come. What began as displays of dominance soon spiraled into accepted rituals of excess within Rome's ruling class. In the palaces of emperors, cruelty was not hidden. It was normalized, even celebrated. To be invited into these circles meant risking one's body as much as one's reputation. Pleasure became performance, and degradation a tool of control. The Emperor Tiberius, according to Tacitus, retreated to the island of Capri, surrounding himself with young captives forced into acts that scandalized even the jaded Roman elite. Caligula, notorious for his sadistic whims, humiliated senators by taking their wives, or in some cases, parading them through public feasts. Nero, drowning in extravagance, staged spectacles where gender, class, and consent were irrelevant, binding his court together through shared fear and humiliation. For courtiers, these spectacles were not entertainment, but survival tests. Refusing the emperor's desires could mean exile, ruin, or death. Enslaved victims, stripped of both status and voice, endured the worst. Their bodies were not seen as human, but as instruments of the emperor's pleasure or cruelty. Behind the gold and the music there was terror, the knowledge that dignity could be stolen at the whim of power. Tacitus and Cassius Dio recorded these accounts with scathing detail, but we must remember their motives. Tacitus, yearning for a return to republican virtue, painted the emperors as moral monsters. Cassius Dio, writing centuries later, may have amplified tales of depravity to warn against tyranny. Exaggeration is possible, but even if half the stories are true, the picture is chilling. Rome's elite had turned sexuality into theater. And for those caught in the spectacle, survival meant submission, silence, and shame. At the height of Rome's imperial power, sexual indulgence became more than private vice. It became orchestrated spectacle. Accounts, preserved by Suetonius, describe emperors who staged orgies as carefully as military parades, filling banquet halls with men, women, and children forced to perform before jeering audiences. The line between celebration and cruelty blurred, as victims were compelled into acts meant to amuse the powerful. What should have been intimacy became theater, public humiliation dressed in silks and candlelight. Some scenes bordered on the grotesque. Seneca, writing with moral outrage, described feasts where guests were drowned in excess, tables laden with food, floors littered with discarded bodies treated as though they were props in the performance of power. Archaeological evidence, erotic. Frescoes in Pompeii, obscene graffiti scrawled on tavern walls, suggests that Rome's culture normalized voyeurism, turning even private desire into public display. But why did these practices escalate to such extremes? The psychology of unchecked power offers one answer. In a world where emperors wielded life and death without question, boundaries dissolved. Pleasure was no longer enough. Control had to be proven through fear, degradation, and excess. Each act was not simply indulgence. It was a performance of domination, a reminder to all who watched. No one was beyond the emperor's reach, and here lies the unsettling parallel. History may condemn Rome's rulers, but the pattern of abuse born from absolute power is not confined to the past. When authority goes unchecked, when fear replaces accountability, excess breeds corruption. Rome's darkest secrets are not relics of marble, they are warnings carved into history. Rome's grandeur dazzled the world with its arches, its aqueducts, its armies, but beneath the polished marble lay a darker truth. A culture where sexuality was twisted into a tool of dominance, humiliation, and spectacle. What these hidden practices reveal is not simply excess, but the corrosive effect of unchecked power. When rulers believed themselves gods, pleasure became a weapon, and cruelty a form of entertainment. We must condemn these acts without hesitation. The suffering endured by slaves, captives, and courtiers was not passion. It was abuse. And yet, to ignore these truths would be to sanitize history, to accept the myth of Rome without confronting the shadows that underpinned its empire. To study Rome honestly is to see both the triumphs and the horrors, the monuments and the scars. So, we are left with a haunting question. Were Rome's rulers gods of pleasure or prisoners of their own appetites? In their pursuit of absolute control, they revealed not strength, but fragility, trapped in cycles of fear and indulgence that stained their legacies forever. What about you? What shocked you most about these hidden practices of the Roman Empire? Comment your thoughts below. We want to hear your perspective. And if you found this documentary revealing, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can continue uncovering history's darkest secrets together. This video is for educational purposes only. It does not promote hatred, violence, or exploitation. Instead, it seeks to shine a light on a past we must remember to ensure it is never repeated. Empires fall, but the shadows of their secrets remain.